Today's episode is brought to you by IFL Watches.
A lot of changes have happened here at Theo and Harris over the last couple of months. So today I'm going to be addressing a lot of those questions that I see in the comments, including what happened to Michael. One thing that hasn't changed, however, is my love for Piaget. So I'm going to show you guys this watch a little bit later and tell you where I think this watch came from. And it's a really interesting story. So stay tuned till the end of this episode for a Piaget, Cartier story, a little bit of Salvador Dali. It's all pretty neat. The first question here is, why are you reviewing so many of your own watches here on the channel? One of the things that this channel has been missing for a very, very long time, actually, I think forever. One of the things this channel has been missing forever, since its inception 9 years ago, has been B-roll footage of the watches that we're discussing, right? Like live here, not just photos. Now, I actually do really like the photo portion of these educational conversations because, there really are so many incredible examples and rare pieces available online. And we spend quite a bit of time sourcing these photos and really picking out the best ones for you. So never think that photographs that were not taken by us are our way of just being lazy. That is not the case, right? But I will say that in-studio B-roll, footage that we take ourselves of the watches, is rather difficult, right? It's an investment of another, often several hours over the course of a week. It also limits what we can talk about, right? Because the company doesn't have all of the watches that we're talking about. It's just not possible, right? I mean, I did a review of the John Mayer Audemars Piguet on YouTube just the other day, and go take a look at that video if you haven't already seen it. I couldn't have possibly had that watch in office, and I'm certainly sorry if people thought that I did. I never meant to even suggest that I had it, right? The term review is used as opposed to analysis, and that's just a mistake that I'm sure we'll make again. Or maybe it's not a mistake, right? Maybe it was done by our team because the word review gets more clicks than analysis, but I really don't know. But I don't think that is a cardinal sin. And, while I'll apologize a little, I won't apologize a lot. But here's the point, right? The reason we're going on hands-on with so many of my personal watches, and like this example today is a watch that's available in the shop, is because we have them, right? So as opposed to climbing a very tall mountain of, getting all of these watches in studio and calling brands and getting watches in and shipping them out and really organizing a ton on the logistics side and all that, it's just not feasible. What we're doing instead is trying to expand our conversation, right? And include this second part of it where, I weave in a watch that is relevant to the discussion, somewhat relevant, right? Albeit a bit tangential, and do some education and show some like really beautiful or whatever, like genuine watch talk, right? So today's conversation, the relevance to the Piaget is a little bit far-fetched, right? But I'm not trying to clickbait anyone. I just think that it's nice to add another facet to the discussion, right? I mean, if we're going to be talking about the current state of Theo and Harris, why not talk about a Piaget that I've really been admiring lately, right? I mean, that just makes sense. It's just in good fun and education. What has happened to Sam? And the answer has a few prongs, but at its core, it's fairly simple, right? Sam is very busy. Sam works for a creative marketing firm, LMF NYC, full-time, number one. So he doesn't really have time to lend himself to being in the videos and researching the subjects. And B, you guys were brutal to him in the comments. Let's get real. So it really got down to the point where I had to, I think, take accountability and say to myself, the channel started with me giving my thoughts and analysis on the watch industry. And we've had many other folks, and they have all been, great and in their own right in all different ways. But at the end of the day, me having a co-host, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, and we'll get to that a little bit later when we talk about Michael, is a crutch, right? It is, right? I, Christian, do not need to do the necessary preparation or extensive preparation or as extensive preparation if I have a co-host, period, end, right? It's more dialogue. It's more funny. It doesn't have to be as fact-based. I don't need to take the analysis as seriously. I can kind of mail it in, right? Having fun, talking about watches, sure, but I can kind of mail it in. And that's why I always, really just wanted to have a co-host. That's it. I mean, that's absolutely true. But I think it was time. I think it is time for me to kind of man up and say, do your reading, do your due diligence, form an intelligent analysis for better or worse, whether you like it, and release the best video that you possibly can, right? I'm busy and that's hard, but you know what? A lot of people are busy and they do harder things than I do. So this is where the business started. This is where the business is right now, right? It's sort of full circle. I don't know what will be 3 months from now, 6 months from now. If there's one thing it's certain, having watched my track record, it's that evolution is going to happen and this will change at some point. But for now, I am absolutely proud of the fact that I've kind of, brought us back to our roots. And I'm also, proud of the evolution, right? When I started this channel 9 years ago, obviously I didn't know as much about the watch industry and I was much more temperamental and a bunch of other things, and now I'm kind of coming to the channel as a slightly older man and doing my best to bring forth really adult analysis, right? And that's it. I'm proud of that. Right. So the next question is, what is the future of Theo and Harris? I see this all the time, right? Particularly, obviously, as it pertains, right, to be it Sam or the shop or Michael's departure, all these other things. What is the future of Theo and Harris? And, I don't want to overcomplicate this question because it can kind of be a little bit existential, right? What is my future, right? I mean, the future of Theo and Harris, I think, really is, predictably the two key ingredients that have made up Theo and Harris for so long. Right? It's critical analysis, right? Often or always rooted in an understanding and appreciation for watch history, right? That's the perspective that I bring. And storytelling, period, end, right? And we release one brand partnership story per month, maybe a little bit more. Maybe we do 15 per year, something about that, some 10 to 15 a year. Our partners are, Bulova and Omega and Longines and, Grand Seiko, Nomos, all these brands that we love. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. I'm sure I did though. And I love that mix. I do. I really love that mix. I am not a photographer. I am not a videographer. You are never going to, I don't think you'll ever see me develop a passion for either of those two things where I'm behind the camera, like some of my YouTube counterparts. And like, I'm really interested in like getting good at using it and developing like maybe a more YouTube-y, more, enticing, whatever persona. It's not me. It's just not, right? If I've been one thing over the last 9 years, while of course we've evolved, I've been pretty consistent at that, right? This channel is about analysis. Channel's about analysis, and this channel is about storytelling. That's it. I know that many of you love it. I know that obviously some of you don't, right? This channel is comparably small to some of our competitors or to almost all of our competitors, and that's just fine, right? I mean, I've never pretended to be or I've never, and if I was, God, I never really succeeded as being a large YouTuber, right? That was never my goal. And God, if it was my goal at one point, I certainly don't even remember it, right? I mean, maybe in the early days, maybe. I don't even know. It's been so long. I am very content with a smaller audience, right? I think it's great that we've got, a couple of thousand people that kind of listen to somewhat long form analysis of releases and hear my perspective. I think that's kind of cool. I think it's a great honor, right? I mean, I gave a talk at a high school a couple of months ago or a month ago in front of 60 or whatever kids. And I thought that was cool. I was like, wow, 60 kids are listening. This is kind of cool. And I go on YouTube and it's easy to look at your view count and it's like, oh, 14,000? That stinks. That's low performing. It's like 14,000 people listen, man. 14,000 people care. Right? And that's kind of cool. And I don't want to lose sight of that. So that's the future of Theo and Harris, right? It's analysis and it's storytelling. And I hope that you stick around and watch. The next question here is, what are the watches you're most excited about right now? This is kind of a fluffer question. It's not as dramatic. I don't know. I mean, the watches are coming out pretty soon at Watches and Wonders. Maybe this video is actually released by then. I don't know. Excited about the Tree Lobe brand. Really like them. They've done some really great things over the last couple of years at good value points. I'm excited to see what Piaget releases. I have a feeling that they will disappoint me, but we'll see, right? But I'm excited to find out. I'm excited to see if Chopard ever fixes the proportions of the Alpine Eagle. I mean, I'm just excited to find out if they figure out what is so obvious. Is that egotistic? I don't think so. I think my criticism is fairly well agreed upon. Like every watch geek, I'm curious and kind of excited to find out what Rolex releases. I'm sure the next morning when Rolex releases those watches and I wake up, I'm sure my heart will be racing a little bit to see it, even though I know they're not going to reinvent the wheel. It's Rolex, So that's what I'm excited about on the new front. And on the vintage front, as you guys know, I'm super into like gold watches from the 70s and 80s. I just love that genre. I love of, I'm really interested in annual calendars from Paddock now. I don't know, maybe I'll buy one of those in the future. Not now, certainly, but at some point. And that's it. What are the watches you're wearing the most right now? Another kind of like filler question. I see it, but it's a good one. Honestly, I'm kind of proud that I really balance my collection really well. There are a couple of watches that I totally neglect. I literally never wear my AP Royal Oak. Never. I never wear my Rolex Bombay. Maybe a couple times in the summer. I definitely wear it more in the summer. I never wear my Cartier Cintre. Apart from those watches, I wear almost everything on a really even right frequency, and I'm proud of that. I wear my Gerald Charles, I wear my Datejust, I wear my Cartier Carré, I wear my Concorde, I wear my Piagets. I'm not my Normal. I wear all of those watches very regularly. I also wear at least 2 watches a day. At least. My Reverso I've been wearing quite a bit. I love it. I actually had a dream about a Reverso last night, which is super weird. You know, you're in a weird place with the watches when you're actually dreaming about them. Next question. Why do you do sponsorships in every episode? Very simply, this is my job. Sometimes people forget about that. This is not my only job, but this is my job, and my job needs to make money, and that's why I do it. I also do it because the creators that I like to listen to, and it probably won't come as a surprise to you that the creators I like to listen to make content similar to the content that I make, which is not very YouTube-y, but it's like kind of didactic and educational and whatever, a little dry, I guess. But they do sponsorships and it doesn't bother me. Like if I just skip them. I just go boom, 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 done. It's like, it's not hard. And I don't resent the fact that they're getting paid. I don't care. I think it's great. I don't care. So I guess that's why, right? Because it's my job, and as a user, to me, it's not a problem. So when people complain about it, it does fall on deaf ears. And that's just the truth. I'm sure some of you would like me to pretend as if I think your concern is valid or of interest to me, but that is the truth, and I think that that's very important. I think it's very important to be honest with your audience, and if you don't have the capacity to double click or triple click a video, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but that's not going to change. And if you can't, and if that makes you turn off the channel, I totally get it. I respect it. Shoot me an email anytime I'm talking about watches. I'm happy to give you my opinions and a quick vintage perspective, or happy to. I'll always be available to anyone, whether they watch or not. I do my best to do that, but I'm just not going to. I don't know. I'm not going to give in to when folks, don't like the sponsorships. It is what it is. And I like it. So that's it. Next question, the second to last. And the last one is, why does everyone hate me? Which is a good one. But second to last is, what happened to Michael? And what bothers me about this question, maybe a little bit more than it should, is I have even Michael has literally talked about this on this channel at length. We've discussed this. We've talked about it. We have talked about it both on the channel and in the comments. So when someone implies that we have been shifty or shady about the Michael situation, it's just inaccurate. So I don't like that. It just kind of bothers me. It kind of bothers me, period. But what happened to Michael? Michael's working on his own projects. I am so proud of Michael. Michael is not just a great filmmaker and creator, but he's such a nice guy. And as an entrepreneur myself, I couldn't possibly be happier for another person to be taking that journey. And if I could have played any small part in that journey, that makes me very happy. Speaking of Michael, my nose is itchy. That's funny. Michael, our noses always itch together. Everyone accuses us of doing cocaine. That's the truth, period, end. And I do think that when folks, talk about how they do miss Michael, well, I totally understand. Like, the banter was totally funny and it was great. It's a much different channel than it is now. And obviously, Michael brought a ton of value, and plenty of viewers tuned in for Michael that no longer tune in. And that's just fine. That's part of the game. But I do laugh a little bit because when Michael and I were creating together, so many of the comments were, can you get to the point, as opposed to the banter and the comedy, right? So it's different strokes for different folks, man. And Michael and I did not have a balance of those two things. We did not have a balance of comedy and information because we were not concise enough for the likes of many. And those people, their criticism was absolutely fair and correct. I can't tell you how many times I would look at Michael before an episode and be like, let's figure out how to make this 12 minutes for the people that want concise. And it could just never happen because we would end up laughing, and it is what it is, whatever. But I definitely, so So that remembering those criticisms does offer me like a little bit of perspective, right? When I see the comments in the videos now and it's like, what happened to banter? I'm like, yeah, well, when there was banter, the guy next to you is saying what happened to, like concise education, or just education, right? The videos with Michael and I were not nearly as educational per minute. It's not even close, it's not even freaking close. It was just two buddies hanging out talking about watches, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But the evolution is funny, right? That people do forget, and a lot of people are the same, right? I mean, I see the names. I know so many of your names, right, through the comments. So it is kind of funny to see that. But that's the long version of the short story. Would love to have Michael back on the channel someday. We absolutely texted. We were just texting the other day. We might get him on in a couple weeks. I don't know. He's got a busy schedule. I have a busy schedule. There's no promises, guys. I'm sorry. I just can't make that promise. But yeah, I'm going to do my best to continue delivering you, content, great content that I think is great, or content that I would watch, okay, for better or for worse. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at IFL Watches, and on Monday, April 29th at 4 p.m. Central, they are releasing another incredibly cool and all hand-painted Citizen Suyosa. As many of you know, I'm a big fan of IFL Watches. They represent, in many ways, what this channel is all about, right? High-quality watchmaking, right? Approachably speaking, too, which is amazing, but individualism, right? Individuality, right? IFL Watches takes these beautiful, watches and uses them as a canvas, and then from there, hand paints these beautiful motifs and pays homage to, so many different things. In today's example, paying homage to, Mickey Mouse and really the steamboat, right? Just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Atlantis, which is an incredibly cool concept. I'm a big fan of their company. I'm a big fan of the quality of their work, and they released one pretty recently, the Citizen Suyosa Galaxy concept that was amazing. These watches sell out incredibly quickly, right? IFL Watches is demanded all over the world. People adore them for the same reasons that we do. So we're really proud to have them as a sponsor. So head on over to IFL Watches at 4 p.m. Central on Monday, April 29th to reserve your new limited Citizen Suyosa Mickey Mouse Willie the Steamboat. It's awesome. Cheers to IFL Watches. And thank you, as always, for delivering just beautiful individuality and beautiful watchmaking. Next question. Why does everyone hate me? For some of you people out there call me everything wrong with the watch world. I know it's a joke, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I also know it's not a joke. I understand, right? Try to be fair, right? Try to be your own biggest critic. I said to my mom pretty recently, if you don't understand why someone might dislike you, then you're not being very self-aware. I think that's pretty good. Right? If you don't, I'll leave a dinner or I'll leave a meeting and I say, if there was one thing that I shouldn't have said, what was it? That's a really healthy thought exercise, right? And I can always identify something, and usually it's not egregious, or it hasn't been egregious in a long time, right? Because I'm getting older. But why does everyone hate me? And everyone does not hate me. A couple of people do, and they're vocal, and that's fine. But, to be fair, I can understand that from a distance, I'm not the world's most likable person. I can understand that I'm a little bit hateable, and it's because I think that, from a distance, anyone that is opinionated and, anyone that's opinionated and not horrible looking is going to be kind of hated. And I don't even think I'm good looking, but the point is, it's you can project kind of, villainy, right, upon people like that. It's just easy to. I'm not saying it's jealousy. I'm not saying it's that at all. But I do think, it's just human. It's totally freaking human. I'm guilty of it. I'm not the sort of person that comments on people's YouTube pages and heckles. I don't do that, and that's fine that some of you do, and that's fine. I try to engage when I can, but I get it. I get it. I think that in many ways, certainly from a distance, plenty of people that have been on this channel and other channels are more likable than I am. I can tell you that, we are not what we seem from a distance. I know I've met plenty of folks on the internet that are horrible in person, are completely unlikable in person. And I would never talk about it, live, but Other people will say, wow, I couldn't believe what he was like in real life, and that's very real. It's not just in the watch space. It's all over, it's in sports. It's everywhere. I can't believe what he was like in real life. It's so different than his persona. And I am proud that, my persona in real life is very similar to my persona, or the exact same. If anything, I'm far quieter in real life, right? I'm pretty quiet and asocial, right, in real life. I'm here and opinionated on YouTube because it's literally what I get paid to do. If I were not paid to do this, I wouldn't be as opinionated. I wouldn't be as vocal. I wouldn't be on Reddit boards. I wouldn't be commenting on Instagrams. I don't have it in me. It's just not me. This is my job. So I'm paid to give my opinions and my perspective on the watch industry, period. And even for all the folks out there that aren't like the world's biggest fans of Christian Zerone, I get it, and I'm glad that you still watch. And I really do try to engage with those folks in the comments. The only things that I truly don't like are when, and maybe I have to get over it, and because ignorance is just out there. But like the whole conversation recently that we had about the John Mayer conversation. I was accused a couple of times of being racist in the comment section, and it's such an absurd allegation. And the allegation was based on the premise that there were no differences between the John Mayer release and the Travis Scott release other than the race of the collaborator. That is an insane remark. The two releases were completely dissimilar, right? John Mayer's product was rooted in history. Travis Scott's wasn't. Travis Scott's watch was completely co-branded with his brand, which is unprecedented. John Mayer's wasn't. Those two right there alone are huge differences. Now, if you don't understand those differences or you don't appreciate those differences, that is perfectly fine. But that does not, your lack of understanding is not evidence of wrongdoing or racism. It's an absurd thing. I'm sure that if I were on YouTube talking about politics and people, called me a racist for something, I would have thicker skin because that's very normal in the political sphere, but it's not normal in the watch industry. So, I guess, but my skin is thick, but I couldn't let remarks go unanswered. So I spent a lot of time answering back and debating these people and disproving their premises, right? And I'm on an airplane or I'm in a fucking airport going through security and I'm answering back and I'm, really being very organized in my rebuttals. And Sam looked at me at one point. He's like, dude, who gives a like if these people have come, it's such a ridiculous thing. You know how absurd that allegation is? Did they watch the video? And I was like, yeah, I know, but I can't let that be said without my rebuttal. Obviously, at scale, that's not possible, right? If you're in a different space and thousands of people are saying things, you can't. But here I could. But I don't know how we even got here. But just trying to have an open and honest conversation here today, as always, but today particularly as it pertains to the state of Theo and Harris and the future of Theo and Harris. Last but not least, guys, I've been doing this on YouTube for 9.5 years, 9 years. And I love it. And I really do love this community. Even though I would not do this for free, and I certainly would not do this as a hobby, right, which are two in the same, I'm so glad that I get to do this. I'm so glad that I get to talk about watches online, or really, honestly, even zooming out, I'm so glad that I get to do analysis online, period. That's my real passion. Analysis and critical thinking is my real passion, even more than watches, period. Watches are a great medium and they're a great conduit. They're a great thing to analyze. They're a great conduit for my analysis. But that's my real passion. So when I leave the studio after recording a 20-minute episode about, the history of whatever, Audemars Piguet and how their, current decisions or brand positioning is dicey and unprecedented and maybe incorrect, and here's why. And I leave the studio, I have a really good day after that because I'm like, wow, you really laid out your points really well, man. It was really good. And, you only had to stop and start twice. So that was good. It was smart. And that was really good mental exercise for the call you have tomorrow morning about something totally different, right? I love thought exercises. I'm really, really passionate about it. I think it makes us better people, and I'm far more proud after I record what I think is a very smart video or a very good video or whatever than I am after I sell a watch or something like that, or sell a strap or sell anything, right? The feeling of you laid that out well, man, is the best. It's the best, and I am forced to do that because it's my job multiple times per week, and I think I'm pretty lucky. I'm pretty lucky in that. So anyway. Thank you all for your 9 years of support so far. I do not see this slowing down anytime in the future. This company changed my life. I wasn't an entrepreneur before this. I was a wantrepreneur before this, right? I had a bunch of different little businesses that, some made money, some didn't, whatever. But this is my first real thing. My first real thing. And it's not my last, but it's my first. And it's not my baby. This is a business, and I would sell it. I would never sell a baby. And a baby I don't need to be paid to watch, right? Nor do I need to be threatened with jail, right? I'd want to. I'd love it. That being said, it is important to me, and I am grateful for it, and I'm grateful for you all because you make it happen. And that's it. So whether this video or all of our videos from here out get 12,000 views or 22,000 views, truly is, in the grand scheme, not even like super grand, like zoomed out 10 feet, doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't. I'm happy to do it. It's a beautiful thing. It is profitable, and I really enjoy it, and I owe a great deal of it to you. I don't know it all to you, but I owe a great deal of it to you. And I think I've had a great opportunity to meet so many of you, and so many of you have joined our private community over at The Zero as well. And that's a beautiful thing. And we've been able to have really, even more in-depth and interesting conversations over there than we can even have over here, because they can be kind of tangential and whatever. And they can be more about business and whatever, but family. But long story short, before we get into this Piaget, I hope I answered your questions. I think I did. I'm sure I'll have to answer some of these questions again very soon, because I'll be accused of having never addressed where Sam went or where Michael went, because it never ends. But anyway, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. And now let's talk about this Piaget. In the 1960s into the 70s, Piaget and Cartier, who were two brands in collaboration at one point in manufacture, Cartier leaned on Piaget for some of their manufacturing of their tank models. In the same period of time where Cartier released their Crash, which was so obviously not the product of a car fire, and so obviously the product of, or inspired by, the imagery of Salvador Dali in Persistence of Memory, Salvador Dali himself, who was still alive at the time, started a collaboration with Piaget. Okay, I think that they all agreed that it was kind of ridiculous that Cartier went and produced this, and Piaget took their own stab at capitalizing on the perspective and design of this great artist. And this watch is not part of that collaboration. Salvador Dali didn't look back into his catalog for their collaboration. Salvador Dali, when they had their collaboration, really informed that collaboration with what was interesting him at that point. Right, whereas Cartier looked back into the Dali catalog, and what was interesting, what was intriguing Dali, at the time of the collaboration was, almost like, gold, right? It was gold. It was like Spanish Armada, right? Kind of thinking. It was the pinnacle of decadence. That's what that was on Dali's mind. My father remembers seeing him at St. Patrick's Cathedral in the 70s, and Dali was wearing not only a large pinky gold ring, this remarkable ornate, I think, diamond and ruby ring, but also was holding a gold cane as well. A whole cane head was a gold animal, I think a lion or something, wearing a fur coat and his hair slicked back. And that is so... it's so obvious that was the era, right? That's what was on his mind. And it was also like in the grander culture, that's what was kind of happening. Nugget jewelry was happening, and Piaget was on top of the world with the polo, and all these things were, the world was decadent at the time, but Dali's designs were even, they were not what rich looked like in the 70s. It was what rich looked like at the bottom of the ocean when a Spanish fleet sunk, right? It was something that's really never butt its head back into design since. Right, which makes sense, right? I mean, Dali is a divergent thinker. He's a bizarre guy, and he found those pieces of gold interesting. Very Pirates of the Caribbean, right? More Pirates of the Caribbean than 70s Piaget, But I do believe that this watch, which was not made in collaboration with Dali, was Piaget's reaction to the Cartier Crash. They obviously did not rip it off completely, but they did, bring in these fluid lines and points and kind of melting idea the principles of the design are absolutely akin. And I love this watch. It's a beautiful watch. It's a very rare watch. I've only ever seen one more in my life. And it's amazing. So this watch is available with its original buckle in the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop. So if you're interested in this watch, whether to buy it or just to look at better photos of it, go ahead and take a look. All of those watches in the shop are sourced by me as the curator. I know I don't call myself that anymore, but just because we're trying to get into the videos quicker as opposed to that whole big intro. But that's it. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I hope I answered your questions, and I hope that you do genuinely feel appreciated, and not in this kind of abstract, maybe disingenuous, vague way, but in a very practical way. I think I paid you plenty of very practical compliments, which I think ought to feel better, once they sink in. But anyway, take care, everybody. And that's it. Take care. Bye-bye.